Whoa, Dad, go, Dad.
That's right. Welcome to Whoa Dad, Go Dad. My name's Dave Momper. I'm your host. This is a fatherhood podcast for new dads and soon-to-be dads. I'm a new dad myself, and I'm asking every day, great dads, what does it take? What does it truly take to take on the ultimate role? All right, let's get to it. Shawn Michael Walker, welcome to Whoa Dad, Go Dad.
Dave Momper, how the heck are you doing, sir?
Well, it's been a good day,
Has it?
and it just went up at least 20% looking at your face.
I would think it would go up more like 28% or something like that, but
At
20 is
least.
good. 20 is good.
You got to take 20.
I'll take 20. 20 is pretty good.
So fun to have a conversation with you. And, we hit play just now or record just now, but
Yeah.
we've already been doing the thing. So
Yeah.
here we are, capturing the moment, capturing the combo.
Yeah.
You and I, we got this fun history. And I'm picturing in my mind as I'm thinking about what's worth sharing with our audience, you and I sitting around a campfire in our boxers.
Sure. There's
You
that.
know that picture. You know
Yep.
that
I know
picture.
that picture. They could go find that picture if they want.
Yeah, it's on the Facebook.
Yep.
And we're high school pals
Yep.
from way back.
A long time ago. It's been a long
A
time.
long time ago.
We lost track of one another for a little bit, I think. But when I moved back to Denver, I moved away for like 12 years, maybe longer. And when I got back, I don't know, I saw you on LinkedIn or something, said you want to do lunch and you work downtown, I work downtown. Let's go reconnect. And yeah, years later, we've reconnected. So
Yeah.
it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
And I got to tell you, being friends with you and say Bryce and that realm of dudes was so healthy for me in a way. And I look back, I'm like, thank God I didn't get caught up in a bunch of rigmarole with, a
Yeah.
different group of homies. But I remember the most
Well, we got ourselves into quite a bit of adventure even then, but
fairly harmless
yeah,
though. Like I
yeah.
remember
Very harmless, wonderful adventure. Yes.
exactly. I remember lots of just lots of antics, and one thing I can picture is the gallon challenge.
Oh yeah. Oh
The
yeah.
gallon challenge. Can you drink a gallon of milk without throwing up? Probably not. There's a bunch of high school kids yakking over the edge of Bryce Baran's back
Right,
fence.
right. 20, 25 guys all trying the gallon challenge all at once, all throwing up 25 gallons of milk within 5 minutes of one another. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a
So
lot of
that's the
fun.
kind
It,
of
it
that's
was a
the kind of
horrible
stuff.
mess to clean up, but Bryce's brother had to clean that up the next day on a hot summer day. So
Yeah. So hopefully Bryce sees this and reminisces with us.
I'm sure he will.
Those are the good days. But
Sure.
truly, a great group of folks that were just they weren't the punks. They weren't the party animals. And
I remember you're right. We weren't punks, we weren't party animals, but we loved to dance. I don't know if you remember all those nights dancing
oh yeah.
or throwing parties where we moved all the furniture out of the main level or and having 100 kids show up and dancing all night long. Those were great nights.
Those were great nights. And
Yeah.
now we've both grown up, taken on some responsibilities.
Yeah.
You're a bit ahead of the game in terms of fatherhood. You've got
Yeah.
17, 15, and a 9-year-old.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I got started early. I went to college and uh, I met my wife, I think my second semester in college. And and we got married maybe a year later. I mean, we were in college, in the throes of college, working full time, going to school full time, and fitting in marriage in between semesters. We got married between winter semester and spring semester, and we had a 2 week break, and we threw in a sweet marriage. And it's been 20 years later. We're still married, and we just celebrated 20 back in January, and we got three awesome kids. Three awesome kids. So.
And your whole family knows how to have fun. That's what I just admire about watching you from afar. You're just so good at having a killer time together.
Yeah, if I don't know why that is. I don't know how we created that, but like you said, in high school we had a lot of harmless, amazing fun, and we knew how to have fun, and we We were creative in the way we had fun, and we would just go do wild and crazy things. And to this day, we do the same thing with the kids. It's like, hey, what can we do to make a memory today? What would be wild right now? And the kids would be like, go jump in Chatfield. I'm like, well, okay, it's March, it's early March, but okay, let's go jump in Chatfield. Let's go do it. If you think that will create a memory, let's go jump in Chatfield. But the kids are always kind of, you know, this name will ring a bell to you, but Praveen would show up at my bedroom window at 2 or 3 in the morning and be like, Shawn, don't burn the day away, which is a line from a Dave Matthews song. But he would always say, don't burn the day away, Shawn. And don't burn the day away was kind of like, I challenge you to get out of bed and do something crazy right now. And so I'd be like, okay, okay, I'm tired and I don't want to get up and I have work in 3 hours, but I cannot burn this day away. And so, my kids will say to me all the time, Dad, do not burn the day away. And I'll be like, that's cheating. You can't use lines from my youth to motivate me to do wild and crazy things, but they do it all the time. And we go for it. And we have a lot of fun. I got a 17-year-old who's talking about leaving the house soon, to go to college. And part of me is just really sad that maybe those days are coming to an end, but we try not to burn the day away and we have a lot of fun together.
Ah, that's such a good mantra. Let us not burn the day away.
Right.
The
Right.
Walker mantra.
Right.
So,
That's
I
one
mean,
of
let's
many.
just kick it off with that notion. You do have a 17-year-old thinking about I don't know if she's threatening, but I can just picture her being like, "No, Dad, I'm leaving in a year," you know.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I'm reading a book called The Intentional Father,
Hmm.
and it's nice. It's right here. It's pretty thin.
Yep.
It's kind of a little journal style book, and it's one of these exercises for an early on dad like
Hmm.
myself is to picture that one day your kid is leaving the home.
Right.
Have you or what will you do to equip them so that they
Right.
can go on their own? What skills will you give them? What wisdom will you impart to them? What experiences will you create for them between now, whenever you're reading this book, or whenever you're whatever stage you're at in fatherhood, knowing that one day your kiddos are gonna set sail on
Right.
their own journey. So, first of all, how's that hitting you in mind and heart?
Yeah. I think every father starts their fatherhood journey with, okay, well, I think they do. I'm not sure if this is true, but I would hope every father would start their journey with going, in 18 years, I will have spent 95% of my time with this human being. And after that, I get 5% of my time with this human being is left. Christmas breaks, summer breaks, you know, Thanksgiving, whatever it ends up being. But it's not a lot of time. So you sit there and you go, okay, I got this brand new baby. What do I want to teach this baby before 18 years is up? And you have all these grandiose ideas. I want to make sure they understand the importance of freedom and liberty. And I want them to understand religion. And I want them to understand faith. And I want them to understand adversity. And I want them to understand all these things that they need to understand before the 18 years is up. And I think a lot of times dads put a lot of pressure on themselves to be like run through this checklist of, did I teach them all this stuff? And I read this really great thing. I was living down in Texas, and this Texas columnist wrote this really beautiful thing about graduation day, where the dad is asking all these questions. He's sending his daughter off and say, "Here's I filled up the car with gas, and your car's all full of all your stuff, and you're now leaving." And the dad is running through the checklist of like, did I check off all the things that I wanted to teach this person? Do they know who do they know everything that they needed to know that I wanted to teach them? And the dad stumbles on, the dad fails to communicate anything that he wants to communicate and just says, "Hey, I've got $150 in cash. Here you go. I love you." And then sends the daughter away in the car to move out forever. And and I think that's what it's like. I mean, you want to teach all these things in these moments. Come Memorial Day, we'll go to the federal cemetery, or we'll go to the cemetery and we'll show them all the crosses and we'll show them what sacrifice looks like. And we'll do these things. But at the end of 18 years, um, you go, did we do it all? And I don't know if we did it all. I don't, what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of pressure to being a dad. There's a lot of things on that checklist that need to be taught. And, and when she drives away in a year and a half or a year to go to college, I'll probably just go, hey, I love you. Here's all the money I have in my pocket. I'll sacrifice anything for you. I hope we got it done. It was my intention to get it done. If you ever, here, you can have anything of mine. I'll give it to you. It's the role of a father to do. So, um,
Hmm.
so I listen to your podcasts and uh and I feel the weight of fatherhood as I listen to your podcasts, like all these dads going, I have so much to teach them. I have so much to do. I only have so much time. It has to get done. And and life just unfolds and you try and teach them in the small moments and you try and teach them in the big moments. And at the end of the day, I just go back to that article that I read where I go, at the end of the day, I'm going to fail and 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 succeed all at the same time and fail to say I love you in an adequate way and just say, here's all the money I have in my pockets. And I love you and we'll see you next time we see you. And and so we try as hard as we can and we teach them as much as we can, but I try not to stress out too much about the checklist of things that need to be taught, you
Fair,
know.
fair, fair, fair.
And that would be my advice for all new dads is, think about the things you want to teach, figure out the moments in life when you're like, hey, this is the moment to teach that thing. Um, but don't stress out too much about it.
Do you feel that to be a great father, you have to know yourself first so then you can teach X, Y, and Z? Or is being a father a really critical way to actually come to know yourself?
Whew. Um, I'm going to go with the first one. I think by the time you become a father, you're going, I think I know who I am. And I think I know what my weaknesses are. And I think I know what my strengths are. And I'm mature enough to identify my strengths and my weaknesses. And so I will, you know, I will be vulnerable enough to talk to my children about my weaknesses and say, you're not, maybe there's something I want to teach my kid, but I'm not mature enough to teach it to him, or I'm not strong in that category. So being vulnerable enough to your child to say, I have something that you need to know and that you need to learn. I'm not sure I'm the best guy to teach it to you because I'm self-aware enough to know I can't or I'm not capable of that. But there is a life lesson that needs to be learned, and we got to get you down the road of learning it. I'm just not sure I'm the right guy to teach it to you. I mean, because you're a dad doesn't mean you're always going to be the right guy to teach the lesson. You can be self-aware enough and know yourself well enough to go, I can't teach you this one. Somebody else is going to have to teach you this one. Maybe it's mom, maybe it's grandpa, maybe it's uncle, maybe it's your best friend, but maybe it's my best friend. But I'm not going to be the one to get you this life lesson here.
Hmm, that's the
That's a
truth.
tricky question though, because humans evolve too, right? Over time, I become a different person as well. Over time, I become more mature. Um, Over time, my faith gets stronger, or my whatever gets, I get better in certain categories.
Yeah.
So it's a good question.
And
What do you
speaking of,
think? What do you think? I
well,
mean,
yeah, I
you're
would,
you're 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 a 43-year-old male. I mean, you should know who you are by now, right, Dave?
let's hope. Let's
Yeah,
hope.
I
No,
would
I
think I
feel
would think
very
so.
convicted in who I am. In fact, funny enough, I almost feel like uh, like being able to put together this podcast. I mean, it's a project, right?
Yeah,
And it's
sure.
an endeavor. Having the resources and the resourcefulness and the organizational skills and the tenacity and the conviction of what I want to create in the world.
Yeah,
You know, if I was 20 and I became a dad, I'd probably be skilled up enough to be capable of being a great dad. But I do feel gratitude that It didn't happen until I was 43.
Yeah.
And now I could, I can approach it differently. And I have my colleagues, my confidants, my friends who are way ahead of me, and I can actually, in a sense, I can benefit from that. And I have, I can learn from them, but I do feel equipped. I didn't, the moment Mackenzie announced to me would have been January of last year in 2023. She goes, pretty sure I'm pregnant. And I was like, game
How'd you
on,
feel?
game on. It was
Yeah.
game on from the moment she said that.
Right.
Granted, we were engaged for less than a month
Right.
when we found that out, and I don't know that she's uh, she's younger than me, and I don't know that she was in that same mindset of like game on right away.
Right.
Now I mean,
Right.
it
Lockstep.
came to be that way early on too, but for her it was like, oh, I guess I wasn't really thinking about having a kid right off the bat. We would, we'd be engaged for a while, then we'd get married, and then we'd go travel, and
Sure.
then
Sure.
and then we'd have a kid. And I'm like, well,
Sure.
sure, but then I'd be like 50 by the time. Like that's not gonna fly.
Right.
So
Right.
in my mind, partly I was like, game on, timing wise, game
Yeah.
on, skill set wise inside of
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
conviction
Yeah.
wise, self awareness wise.
Right.
At the same time, if I had a kid in my 20s, I would acknowledge I'm still a work in progress for sure. I mean, I'm still a work in progress now,
Right.
but a work in progress for sure when you're 20, turning 30, turning 40,
Yeah.
and kids are going to see you become more of who you are,
Yeah.
and transform and evolve and all that stuff.
Yeah. I think I had my first kid when I was 25, maybe 24. I think 25. And I was still a young, immature kid, and so I think as a young, immature kid, I was at least mature enough to go, I'm still a young, immature kid. I'm going to need some outside sources here to help me where where I'm not mature enough to actually play this role. And there's probably a level of maturity in that awareness of going, because I'm young and immature still, I'm going to need some mature roles to step in here and play a part in this and help me with my weaknesses.
What were those resources, by the way? Who
I
were
don't know,
they? Who were they?
grandpas, other friends that are having kids, where you know, just relying on others, books. You're reading books. I was reading books, just kind of filling in the blanks and going, okay, um, I'm busy in my career. I'm growing a career. I'm getting stuff done. We had just moved down to Texas with a career move and a career step up the ladder. And so um, I just relying on friends that were also in that same category. Friends that maybe were more mature, where you're going, hey, how are you doing this?
Not
Because
working over you.
I'm not sure how I'm approaching this whole thing yet. But I've learned a lot from my friends. Like you mentioned, Bryce. I've learned a lot from Bryce as it relates to being a great father. So
Not even surprised.
yeah.
What a good dude.
But what are your weaknesses? So you're a father, you're a new father. You know yourself very well. You're a 43-year-old male, and you're going, okay. Uh, I know
Hmm.
for a fact I have a weakness, and I might not be the equipped to teach this thing or equipped to handle this situation of fatherhood. Um, where are you going? Yeah, maybe I'm not going to be the best person. Maybe I'm going to have to bounce him over to my brother or bounce him over to grandpa or bounce him over to one of my close guy friends to answer that question or do that scenario.
Well, I mean, as a human, I have some weaknesses. I admit and suspect they're,
Mackenzie's rolling her eyes going, come on, he's
yeah,
got like a
yeah.
whole laundry list of weaknesses.
Give me a break, Momper. But for the time being, I don't think they're being exposed. Like
Yeah.
uh, holding my nearly 7 month old, spending time with him, uh, the duties that I have in particular, the duties we have as parents right now,
Yeah.
everything seems manageable.
Yeah.
Everything seems like we got it. And
Yeah.
it's not like we're having conversations with him about the birds and the bees or
Sure.
politics or
Sure.
um, good and
Yeah.
bad and all that stuff quite yet. So there's some pressure off of me currently.
Yeah. But that all comes. And I wonder if
Yeah.
that's why people are like, oh, teenagers are so hard. It's like, are teenagers really that hard, or does it just start exposing your weaknesses? When you start having political conversations around the dinner table, does that start exposing your weaknesses? Or when faith starts playing a role and you're willing to say to your kids, look, man, sometimes my faith is really weak. Like, I'm not going to sit here at this dinner table and tell you I'm like some spiritual giant that doesn't struggle with faith. So those are kind of like the weaknesses where you're kind of like, yeah, being willing to say, I've got some chinks in my armor and I'm more than willing to show them to you kids. I'm willing to show and express to you what's going on in dad's head, you know?
Yeah.
Like our kids go to an incredibly conservative school. And I grew up in San Francisco, I grew up in a quasi liberal household. And so, um, the kids will regurgitate some pretty conservative stuff at the dinner table. And I'll be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Whether I agree with you or not, like I at least want my kids thinking about everything from all the different angles. Like, let's at least play devil's advocate and think. About all this stuff. Um, and sure, I'm fine if you land wherever you end up landing, but I want you entertaining thoughts
Sure.
and vetting stuff out and thinking about all this stuff.
Right, right, right. Yeah, land there as a result of critical thinking and having your own mind made up, or your
Right,
own your own thinking versus regurgitating things.
right,
Gosh, it's such a good question about my weaknesses, and I'm like, well, I don't know. I feel like I'm doing too much right now in my life. Not too much, but I'm doing a lot. So balancing schedules and stuff like
yep,
that. But that's
yep,
that's not necessarily a weakness, but I could see how it would become a vulnerability to be uh, not distracted, but unfocused, if you will. It's like I gotta really hone in my time, and I have a little bit of lax right now with him, but a year from now, 2 years from now, it's like
yeah,
you kind of you kind of got to narrow in on what you're up to on any given day. You got to be structured, and you got to factor in. I think Mac and I right now, our weakness is understanding each other's schedules and needs,
right, right.
and we're just bulldozing through days. We're just kind of like getting through these days
It's
and not.
interesting. Sorry, go ahead. No, keep going.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about today. Like she knew I had a podcast earlier this morning. I had a client engagement midday. I had a business call, personal call midday, and we just started doing something where at the very end of the week on Sunday night, we whiteboard out our week,
Right,
meal plan some things, think
right,
about our top priorities. We've got a question of the week we pose, and then it's like, what does the household need? What are the household projects and what does the household need? So that we're
right.
thinking, right. But that's in reaction to just bulldozing through days with like, okay, what does it need? Okay, I'll take him for a little bit. And we both work from home. We both
Right,
have control of our schedules more than the average pair of adults. So we haven't put him in daycare. We haven't brought a babysitter in. We
right,
will
right,
shortly. And
right.
probably there have been a day or two where we like, that would have been good. But uh, we figured it out, and here we are, right? So I think
Yeah,
just smoothing out some of that experience and being a little bit more coordinated and truly, uh, I'm all in on my wife. I'm all in on Leo. I'm all in on my family, and yet I'm also historically a very networked social guy
right.
who's doing a bunch of different things, talking to a lot of people, up to different endeavors, and I'm realizing like to a degree that can continue, but I also need to really honor my family unit. Like,
Right.
and of course, rhetorically speaking, early on, it was like the idea of being a husband, a father, and having a family. I know that takes focus and commitment and dedication, but it's just a concept until it's real.
Yeah.
And now it's real front and center. So I think a weakness, if I have one currently, is that he's kind of revealing to me and teaching me is focusing my attention on truly what matters.
Yeah.
He's that's that litmus test on everything I do is now there. He's not verbally posing the question, but
Right.
he's
Yeah.
his presence poses that question for me.
Yeah.
quite often.
It's interesting, this podcast, it could almost be like a whoa dad, go dad / whoa husband, go husband, like it's very much
Yeah.
being a father is also how
Yep.
am I going to be, how do I be an even better husband for Mackenzie, right? Like what are my weaknesses in who I am that would keep me from being the best husband possible, that also um, you know, that also relates to the fatherhood aspect of it. Mackenzie's like, I'm done. Take the baby. I need 2 hours alone. Please just give me some time. It's like, I'm a good dad. I can step up. I'm a good husband. I can step up. I can do that stuff. Um, like, what have you learned about yourself from a weakness perspective as it relates to like husband / father, not just father, but husband
Yeah.
/ father?
Oh
Or
gosh. Well, I need to chew on the weakness there too, but the role of being a great dad involves being a great partner
yeah,
is
right,
front and center for me. And
right,
I've actually, I'd love to get your take on it, in fact, but I've I've found this conversation leading to that quite often in
right,
these father conversations. And in
right,
fact, last week you and I were supposed to have this conversation
right,
last week,
right.
and it was like, no, my
I got
partner
to be a
needs,
husband. Yeah,
my wife needs, she needs 3 hours, like you just said, 2 hours, 3 hours of not doing anything but just
right,
taking a bath, taking a nap, and hanging out.
right.
And I pulled the ripcord on a dinner party
Yep.
plan. Um,
There it
I
is.
pulled I pulled the ripcord on this, and it was like it felt great to do that actually.
Yeah,
I was bummed I didn't get to talk to you last week. I was bummed I didn't get to see our friends for dinner, but it felt like, no, this is, I'm honoring the role. I'm honoring
yeah,
myself, my commitment to my wife, and what my wife really needs. And it felt great just to like clean the slate, go
yeah,
home, hold the baby, and then almost free up the night in the afternoon.
yep,
It was kind of nice. But
yep,
you're right. Being a great dad is all about, well, it's not all about, but it's largely about being a great partner too.
yep, yep.
What's my weakness though? I don't want to like skirt around that, but I kind of need to ponder it. I think, oh, there's probably a part of me that's from time to time like, oh, that's mama's role.
Yeah,
Like middle of the night, a couple times lately, it's like he's crying. That's mom's deal. Like,
yeah. Sure, sure.
and which it kind of is in the sense that he's hungry, he wakes up in the middle of the night and he needs a
Right,
little
right,
sustenance,
right.
right? But instead of actually, oh, I hate saying this out loud. Instead of like getting up and bearing the burden with her and him, and I'm kind of like pillow dunk,
Yeah, right.
and
It's
and
not my job. Good
not
night.
my job right now, right?
Yeah.
I need to
I'm
wake
not
up.
I'm not on the clock right now. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But these are huge questions for me to ponder. It's like what are our weaknesses? Are we familiar with them? Are we aware of them? And can we own them, honor them, factor them in? Don't let them sneak up behind us and
Yeah.
sabotage us and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I
And then
shine a spotlight on it so that everybody knows, hey, that's a weakness. I admit it, but we're gonna work around that.
yeah,
Or
exactly.
I'll work on making it better, but we're also all gonna work around it too.
How did your partnership with your wife show up with kids in the mix, the family factors early on, ages 1 through
Mm.
10? It's like,
I don't know.
what did she need from you most in those early years that I could be on the lookout for?
I'm not, that's a great question. I don't know. I know that, um, first of all, I should just say my wife's absolutely incredible. Like she will just like say, the bathroom needs to be tiled, and she'll go buy a tile cutter and saw, and I'll come home from, a camp out, a church camp out or whatever, and she's on the floor floating cement and laying tile. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what is going on? Or,
Amazing.
the dishwasher needs to be fixed. And she's like, I leave to work and I come home. She's like, I fixed the dishwasher while you were gone. Or, plumbing under the sink, or I mean, I could just go on and on and on, where she just takes a project and just goes for it, and loves the intellectual challenge of figuring out the puzzle and getting it done. So, um, a lot of times it's just simply, you know, understanding that she's really smart and she wants to bite off those big projects, and when she does, it doesn't leave time for other stuff to get done in the household. So, getting home and saying, I can do all that other stuff. I don't want, I personally am not the guy who wants to figure out how to tile a floor. So if you want to figure out how to tile the floor, great. I'll clean the kitchen and make it spotless, and then I'll do the laundry, and then I'll iron all the laundry, and I'll put away all the laundry, and I'll make us dinner. But I really don't want to do the tile, So I guess being willing to, um, just adjust on the fly and say, hey, you're stressed out because you've chosen to do something. I can relieve some of that stress, or being like a stress release valve for your wife. I think there's something really mature in saying, um, I'll do anything for you, and if that means losing an hour of sleep, I'll lose an hour of sleep. I'll do anything for you. And I'm willing to do that, but the nice thing is she's willing to do that too. I'm willing to lose sleep for this, and I'm willing to sacrifice for this. So you got two really, you know, mature adults saying, hey, I'm willing to give everything I can to make this thing work. And everybody's willing to sacrifice a lot for that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers the question, but she's great. She's great.
Sounds amazing. Make sure she listens to this so she knows. I'm
Right.
sure
No,
you
she
tell her.
knows. She knows. I tell her all the time. I told her 5 times today, but she's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. Can I tell you something? I want to answer a question before you even ask it. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah, let's
Am I
hear it.
gonna am I gonna derail something? Do you have a
No,
profound
no
question for
plans.
me?
No plans here.
Okay. I want to tell you and your audience the 3 impressions I got as a brand new father. So the
Okay.
day
Yeah.
my daughter was born,
Yeah.
I received 3 very distinct impressions. And so I'm gonna ask you, Dave, did you have like distinct impressions immediately upon becoming a father? Okay. I'll tell you my 3 first and
Yeah.
let you kind of chew on it. You don't have to proactively listen to me right now. I'll just talk and then you can just be thinking. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, but the 3 distinct impressions I got was, I love this individual and I will always love this individual no matter what decision she makes, no matter what, I will have this like endless love for this individual. She could become whatever she becomes. I don't care what it is. I will always love this being that has just come to me. The next impression was, I really immediately felt like I became a papa bear. Like I became like very protective of this being, this life that I was now in charge of. And I'm not a very aggressive person in life. Like I'm a competitive person, but I'm not very physical, and I don't fight and I don't like confrontation. But I remember becoming very protective of, like, I'm in charge of protecting this individual. And I could almost remember like standing between me and the nurses, like I'm in charge of protecting this person, and and I just remember always thinking, for the rest of my life, I will always do anything it takes to protect this being, this human. And I remember that being my second one. Um, and then the third impression that I got was, and I kind of got these all simultaneously. The third impression I got was, I will always, for the rest of my life, sacrifice and provide for this human being. Like, no matter what has to happen, I will work. I will work hard. I will get a job. I will dig a trench. I will do anything that it takes to provide for this human being. And if that means sacrificing to any degree, it will happen. And so those were the 3 very distinct impressions I got as a new father when I had my firstborn. And subsequently, each other child I had, it's like those impressions come right back to me, where I'm like, I love this thing no matter what choices it makes in its life. I will sacrifice and provide for it. And and I'll keep it safe. Like no matter what, I'll keep this thing safe no matter what. I will put myself in physical harm if I have to keep this thing safe. So let me ask you, have you like what impressions did you get immediately upon becoming a father?
Whew. Well, those are good, by the way. I love how mindful, how thoughtful you are. I'm not surprised knowing you, but I love those. My impression, the impression I got for one, if anyone's been listening to some earlier podcasts, little Leo comes out lifeless, breathless, and I just remember the impression of how, I guess it's twofold. One, how fragile life was or
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
Just kind of like, my God, there's this helpless little creature, lifeless, breathless, fighting for his existence. And on the flip side of that, like it had me going, I will never take life for granted again.
mm,
And I
interesting,
probably have been taking life for granted.
interesting.
Shit, what have I been doing with my life? I
Yeah,
so there was definitely this moment where I remember thinking while he was struggling, while in the midst of it, like, I will never take life for granted. And I think I spoke to
wow.
God in that moment for probably one of the first times, if not the first time in my life. Like, hey, homie, you got me on this.
I need
I,
you.
I need you. I need you.
Yeah,
I need you. Um, yeah. I'm trying to think of
interesting.
the other impressions I got. Um,
Well, that's a great one. I mean, if that's it, that's a great one. I mean, that's a really great one. This is the I would love to ask this question to every dad. Like, what were you impressed with? What was impressed upon you when somebody stuck that baby in your arms and said, "Here you go, this is yours now."
yeah.
And you're like, "Oh," and like what impressions came and weighed on you once you had that moment happen?
Well, I suppose the second one then for me is the magnitude of being a father. And that's the premise of Wodad Godad is exploring the ultimate role. Like
Yeah,
what other role is of any importance technically than
yeah,
like compared to fatherhood, there's just nothing holds the weight. I know
yeah,
you're an executive of an insurance company and it's like
yeah,
you're a best friend, you're a husband, all important roles, don't get me wrong,
yeah,
critical roles. But the ultimate role, and I just remember especially how fragile he was thinking, I now have this duty and responsibility
yeah,
to protect, I suppose, to provide. Those factors were in there. They weren't as explicit in my impression, I suppose, but I was like, wow, the magnitude of being a dad, like the ultimate responsibility is now tangible.
yeah,
It's real. It was conceptual leading up to it for me, and then Mac, it was more real as she was pregnant. It was front and center.
yeah,
Um, it was front and center just how and not in an intimidating way for me, almost like, wow, okay, so here I've now reconciled after 43 years almost the true meaning of life. And
hmm,
I don't know if I could put it into words, but I could feel it.
mm, mm.
And a
Wow,
third impression. I mean, I was impressed honestly with my the experience led me impressed by my wife
I
and
was
the
gonna
the
say,
act the act of giving birth
yeah,
in our modern day. It's this major endeavor, and to think about we've been giving, you know, bringing life into the world for eons, and all the different ways we did it, or all the different situations or dynamics that historically have existed, and the hardship and the task and the experience of becoming or of giving birth. It's like, holy, holy smokes.
yeah,
How intense, how crazy, how miraculous, truly,
yep, yep.
truly miraculous.
That's a really interesting thought too. That I was going to say is that was another significant impression that so all of our kids are born C-section and our firstborn was C-section and in the middle of the night I was sleeping on a hard, uncomfortable floor, a really hard, uncomfortable floor. And I was with my wife and, I wake up in the middle of the night, kind of like, oh man, what's going on? I'm hearing some noise. People are moving around. I wonder if I should get up and help. What's going on? And I look at my wife and she's like leaned over, picked up the baby, is feeding the baby, and is doing the mother thing for the first time. So like this whole podcast is like the importance and the of fatherhood, and I'm watching motherhood happen, like from my perspective as a new father, happening for the first time, and I'm watching my wife do, you know, first steps motherhood, and doing it flawlessly, like feeding a baby, and despite having a C-section, probably being a lot of discomfort, and like leaning over and taking care of the baby, and me just kind of bleary-eyed looking up at her and like smiling at her and being like, wow, you're doing it, babe. And not only are you doing it, but you're really good at it. Like, who taught you how to do this? This is incredible. Like, how are you doing all of this? Where are you getting this well of energy? And so, I know this podcast is about dads, but I think some of dad's first impressions are, my significant other is knocking it out of the park. And I'm so impressed with how they're doing and how well they're handling and dealing with the adversity that they're dealing with at that moment in time. I mean, delightful adversity, but still a new wild, you know, test of who they are and who they're going to become in very short order. You're on mute.
How did I get muted?
I don't know.
To be in awe and admiration of our partners in those moments is it. Hopefully, it's striking everybody because I remember it wasn't bliss, it was
Right.
madness, and
Right.
yet I saw my wife, like, for one, go through the physical nature of birth
Right.
and like lean into it, and the primal, calling in, and just her expressiveness was like, wow. And then in those first few moments, the leadership that she showcased was front and center.
Right.
I didn't take the lead. She took the
Right.
lead,
Right.
and her instincts kicked in uh, blatantly,
Right.
much more than mine did. I mean, I was there, of course, in my instincts as well, but I mean, she was the one calling out his name and and set
Right.
set the course for us, and then I followed her lead. So I think there's something about watching our wives become mothers that's profound,
Yeah,
profound.
there's definitely like I remember this was a long time ago, but there were like clear impressions about how incredible it was to watch my wife become a mom versus me becoming a dad. Like, it seems like wives have to become moms way faster than dads have to become dads. Like, I know you're playing an active role in being an awesome dad and holding Leo on your chest, and you took Leo to the hospital, and you played and stepped up to dad role very, very quickly. But early on in childhood, we don't get to play a humongous significant role, right? I mean, we get to hold these things and love these things and be around these things. But moms seem to step into the role of motherhood faster than dads step into the role of fatherhood. I don't know if that's an accurate statement, but what is an accurate statement is, it's fun to be a father and watch your significant other turn into a mother. And it seems like they turn into mothers, from my perspective at least, a lot faster than dads turn into fathers.
See what you're saying. I
Yeah.
see what you're saying for sure. And yet uh for our experience at least, the puzzle that Mac had to put together early on, he came home with oxygen.
Yeah.
He's learning how to, eat out of a bottle at the
Yeah.
hospital and just feed himself, supplemental with a feeding tube, and then the breastfeeding, the dance of
Yeah.
that.
Totally.
That
100%.
puzzle is almost like the the I don't want to say burden, but kind of like the duty of motherhood is so much more significant
Right.
early on, front and center, that that there's there's almost time for fathers to become fathers. There's no time for a mother
Right.
to become a mother. They
That's a
must.
great way of saying it. That's a great way of saying it. I guess I don't want my thoughts or my words to be misinterpreted. It's fun as a husband and as a father to look at your wife step into that role, or your significant other step into and up to that role so quickly and so beautifully and so well. And as a father or as a husband, sit back and be like, I don't know how you're doing all of this. You're doing way more than I'm doing, and you're doing it so marvelously. And it's almost inspiring for me to be like, man, when I have to step up in any way, I hope I step up as good as you've stepped up and into this role, because nothing is immediate that is making me step up. But man, I am going to try to step up into this role as well as you're stepping up into your role. So
Totally.
I don't
They
know if I'm
said that.
saying that. I don't know if I'm saying that accurately, but it's so much fun it was so much fun for me to watch my wife turn into a mom and how fast she did it.
Well, and they definitely set the bar. Like I hope I'm as good of a dad
That's
as
my point.
Mac is a mom.
That's my point is like you set the bar, and now as I become a father, I want to just get to your level of the level that you've set, you know. So
No question about it. And Mac, I mean, it was a cumbersome puzzle, but and I bet she felt in the thick of it. She probably didn't feel marvelous and like she was crushing it, but I'm going, you're nailing it. Like you
yeah,
and it's not to actually do it perfectly, but it's to figure out the puzzle.
sure.
Uh, it's to solve the puzzle. Like your pursuits of perfection are impressive. Whether you're perfect or not, I'm not worried about it. But
Yeah.
it's like the and it took some time, man. It took some time for her to get
Yep.
in sync and to feel like,
Yep. Same with
you know,
Natalie. And I wonder if it's that way for everybody, for every woman, but it was the same for Natalie. It took time, you know. But from a husband's perspective, I was like, man, you're killing it. Like you may feel like you're failing. All I see is you like absolutely doing an incredible job. Like this is
sure,
so impressive.
sure. Yeah, and then and yet there's the firsthand experience that it's just impossible for us to know exactly what they're going through, and it's hard as can be,
Yep.
but it's still admirable, and
Yep.
and I'm in awe. I'm in awe, man,
Yep.
and as are you.
Yep.
So the the idea of we're shifting back to equipping our kiddos here with where I want
Okay.
to take this. It's like you want to equip your kids with certain skills, teach them certain things, perhaps. As fathers, we want to do that. Makes sense. But I'm
Yep.
wondering what did or what have your kids taught you over the last 17 years? What have they
Mm.
that you couldn't have learned without them? What have they actually
Mm.
taught you about the world, perhaps, or about yourself?
I don't know, on a really high level, my kids teach me stuff all the time. So, but I'm just talking about like the simple stuff, like nothing profound. My kids go to school and they're getting a great education, and they're coming home and telling me stuff about Napoleon, and I'm like, I've never heard this before. Like you're blowing my mind here.
Yeah.
Or my daughter comes home and says, "Here's Fahrenheit 411 or whatever the book is." She's like, "You should read this." I'm like, "All right, I'll read it." She's like, "It's a really good book." Okay, I will. Or The Scarlet Letter, or she comes home and is like, "This is incredible literature. You should read this." I'm going, I'm not opposed to it. Let's read it.
Cool.
And so they're teaching me. I mean, we can maybe begin to bring this down to maybe answer your question maybe from a more philosophical perspective, but like at a very high level, they come home from school and they're learning such amazing, wonderful stuff that we sit around the kitchen table eating dinner, and they're going, "This is what I learned at school today," and I'm like, I don't remember any of this from public school, so feel free to expound. I need more, please. Everybody, give me as much as you can. And the whole table is talking about stuff, and we're jumping online and digging deeper into all this stuff. And as a family, I'm just going, this is really cool that my kids are teaching me some really cool stuff, or making book recommendations and going, "Dad, you'll love this. This is literary genius stuff." And I'm going, I'm in. I want to read a really good book that challenges me. So let's go for it. You know, and so I definitely learned that stuff from my kids. Um, you know, I think faith plays a large role in what I've learned from my kids, you know, like um, how it's been fun to watch like my kids go through trials of faith, you know, and come out stronger on the other side. Or it's interesting to watch my kids go through, you know, surgeries um, or or complex moments in their life where they come out stronger on the other side, and they're really good examples of strength, or they're really good examples of um, intellectually approaching problems like faith, you know. And so I oftentimes learn that stuff from my kids where I'm like, man, you know, I'm supposed to know it all, but I don't. And I'm willing to admit that. And I'm learning a lot from you guys as it relates to, you know, certain categories in life. And I tell them that, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with telling your kids, you know, I'm learning from you right now. I'm watching you. I know you guys are supposed to be watching me and I'm supposed to be the ultimate example, but I'm watching you and I'm learning, I'm growing from you guys. You guys are making me better.
And you tell them that
Yeah. I don't
probably every day.
all the time. I don't know why a parent wouldn't tell them that. Like I would hope that you would look at me as an example, but I'm always looking at you guys as an example as well. You know, as a family unit, you know, some of us are going to have strengths and some of us are going to have weaknesses. And hopefully you look at me for my strengths and expect me to have some strengths. But I'm more than willing to admit I have weaknesses, and I look to you to help me be better at those weaknesses
Yeah.
and look to you to be my example for those things.
Hmm. Lucky. Love it. Love it. What about kind of the flip side? But I'm just thinking about over the years, what have been the things you've had to compromise because of kids, because of raising kiddos?
Well, I drove a PT Cruiser for a really long time,
Ah,
and that was not cool.
I was waiting. I'm like, hey,
I'm I'm joking, but I'm also dead serious. Like there were sacrifices. You know, we drove an old crappy Dodge minivan for a really long time, a really old crappy Dodge minivan for a really long time. Um, uh, you know, there's been sacrifices. There's sacrifices that parents make, and I tell my kids all the time. I have a picture of my kids selling lemonade in front of the house, and they have a sign that says, "My dad's not paying for my college, so please buy us a glass. Please buy a glass of lemonade from us," or something like that. You know, and I've always told my kids, "I'm not paying for your college because nobody paid for my college. So you're gonna have to pay for your college because I'm not planning on paying for your college now. Whether I do or don't, you know, we'll see what happens. But um, you know, I think my kids understand when you have kids, you know, my wife and I weren't even graduated from college. I don't think. Maybe we were barely graduated from college when we had the first kid. I mean, we didn't have the finances to just do anything, you know? Um, and so life was playing with your 2-year-old at at the local playground, you know, and that was just as good as Disneyland, you know? And so, you know, maybe we made sacrifices, maybe sacrifices were made, but life works out. Life's great. And so maybe we had to make some financial sacrifices to make life work early on. Um, but nothing I would give up. Nothing I would give up. It made us a stronger, better family. And sure, we made some sacrifices, but you know, the other thing that's really important is I always wanted to be a father. Always. Like from the time I was 12 years old, I knew my firstborn son was going to be named Crew. On my very first date with my wife, she was getting out of the car and I was like, this was an incredible date. This girl is amazing. And as she was getting out of the car, I playfully said, "Hey, there's really no reason for us to go on a second date and a third date and like start heading down this road of falling in love." You know, I was just playfully joking with her, but I'm like, you know, there's really no reason for us to head down this road and tumble down this road haphazardly unless you're okay with the name Crew, because my firstborn son will be named Crew. And so we really don't need to do a second date unless you're cool with that name, because I really don't want to head down this road emotionally with you unless you're okay with this name. And I remember getting in the car on the second date, And the very first words out of my mouth were, so how do you like the name Crew? Are you okay with that? And she's like, yeah, that's a pretty cool name. I'm like, great, great. I can fall in love with this lady. I'm going to fall in love with this lady, and this is going to go somewhere. But but that was kind of like a non-negotiable was Crew. My point is, it was a negotiable, but the point is I always wanted to be a dad. So like when people say, what sacrifices did you have to make to become a dad? It nothing to me was really a sacrifice. It was what I always wanted to do. It's like sacrifice, great. I'll sacrifice anything. I want to be a father, and I want to be an incredible father, and and I want to have these little lives that I'm responsible for, and these little lives that I get to interact with, and now I have it, and it's really really great. So I don't really look at anything as like a sacrifice. It was something I always wanted. It was like sacrifice anything. I just want it. Like I want to be a father.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Tells me a lot about you. And yet there was the PT Cruiser like that.
But there was a PT Cruiser at some point, and it was horrible. Like there was nothing worse than pulling up to a light with a 4-cylinder red PT Cruiser, and like having a grandma in a red PT Cruiser right next to you, like, hey, we're one and the same. And I'm like, oh, this is
What have I done?
I'm,
Where do
I'm
you feel
sacrificing too much.
exactly, right? It's all for these kids. But where do you feel like that where what's the impetus or the foundation of that yearning and focus to become a father? Where do
I
you
don't
what do you
know.
attribute it to?
I don't know.
Your
I don't know.
folks, your upbringing?
I don't know. I have no idea. My mom was like, I don't know. I have no idea. I came from a great family of 4 kids, and I had a great mom and dad, and I don't know. I just always wanted to be a dad. I have no idea where the desire came from, but it was nothing I was ever scared of. It was something I was always excited to become. Maybe I just thought I'd step into that role really well, and think it would be fun to have little humans that were like a built-in fan club or something. I don't know. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, right.
It's somebody I could, play with and joke with and laugh with, and that's what we've created is a family where we joke and laugh and play all day long.
Yeah, that's the truth. So I had asked you what it meant to be a legendary father when I
Yeah.
prompted the setup for this, and I think it's worth bringing this in right now. It's like leading by example. Great. That, yeah, appreciate that. And then the second line truly is the epitome of what I suspect is like your fatherhood philosophy, your own personal philosophy. And I don't know if you remember what you wrote, but you say leading by example, being different is a superpower to
Yeah.
embrace.
Yeah.
So how does that, I mean, I love that. And I kind of I could tell the audience what I think that means, but how does that show up for you?
You
And
know,
have you imparted that on your kiddos?
yeah, I do believe being different is a superpower. Like, if people haven't figured out, I'm a religious guy, I'm a Mormon guy, you know, I don't drink, I don't swear a lot, I'm a pretty, that makes me pretty different. When I go out with customers and we're up till 12 midnight at a steakhouse and everybody's drinking, you have to be able to embrace being different. And I like I like singing. I like musicals. There are aspects about my life where you go, that guy's a cool guy, but he's different, and that's not something that I'm scared of. It's something where I step into that and go, fine, whatever. This is who I am. I'm fine with that. Like, if you aren't, that's okay with me. I feel like being willing to accept who I am and accept the fact that I'm different, that doesn't bother me at all. I step into that as opposed to shy away from it. And I tell my kids all the time, society is trying to teach you to fit into the box that works best for society. And I'm not raising kids who are trying to do that. Like I'm raising kids who are going, I'm different too in my own ways. Dad's weird in his ways, and I'm weird in my ways. My faith might make me weird. The things that I like might make me weird. Whatever it is, kids, I want you to own that and step into that and not be scared of that. And you can be really, really cool, and people can really buy into that. Like that can make you an incredibly intriguing person that society is addicted to understanding better because it's such a peculiar principle. And so we try to teach our kids that, like, okay, so you're weird. Like, so my 15-year-old son loves to do ballroom. Fine, that's really weird, but don't be scared of that, son. Like, step into that and be like, I do. What's wrong with that? It's weird. So what? I'm different. Uh, you can't tease me about it because I'm not offended by it. Like, that's perfectly fine. Or you can tease me about it. I won't be offended about it because I'm not offended. It's something that I own and I love. And so, as you start having teenagers and getting outside of the acceptable teenager box is scary and sometimes worrisome for a teenager. It's really fun to have kind of prepared them for that. So by the time they're, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, they're going, so what? I'm not going to try to fit inside of the normal teenager box. And I'm not even scared to tell anybody that I'm not trying to fit inside of the normal teenager box. I'm going to do different things. I'm going to make different decisions. And and quite frankly, it worked out well for me when I was young. I mean, I was I feel like I was always a little bit different, and I always thought, hey, this could be my superpower, stepping towards that, as opposed to being scared of saying, oh shoot, I'm not like everybody else, so therefore I can't be as cool as anybody else. The idea is you're different. If you say that and you're willing to admit that, you're impenetrable. Nobody can say anything that will ruin you, because it's like, yeah, I own that. I like ballroom dancing.
So good. I
You,
think
you
it's
can't.
such a gift to give your kiddos that spirit of nonconformity. And I remember Sean Walker in high school was a character, and like you stood out to me. And you could give me a list of a lot of our high school friends that played it safe, and conformity. They got lured into conformity,
Yeah,
and it's like, I wonder what they're doing. I haven't really thought about them, but I remember you. Like you were a character. You stood out because you had the audacity to be yourself. And it was, I look back at it now and I'm like, it's freaking beautiful, man. The art of non the
well,
art of
thank you.
nonconformity is, I think there's even a book on it, but it's like, that is a skill set. I love that as a potential skill set to equip your kiddos with it's is it a mindset? It's an attitude almost. But
Yeah,
it's like, go be you. Go do your
yeah,
thing. And it turns out, if you honor that and embrace it, you are impenetrable. Your word, but such a powerful word.
yeah, yeah. That's not it's not easy to teach your kids. I mean, teenagers do want to fit inside of the box, right? They're like, it's uncomfortable, and it's like, I know it's uncomfortable, but the sooner you realize that you have this superpower, it gets way more comfortable. Like, the sooner you don't care if you're popular or not popular, or if you don't care if you're going to get teased about loving ballroom or not loving ballroom, or loving musicals or not loving musicals, or not drinking or drinking, or not swearing or swearing, or whatever, wearing a modest dress to prom or not wearing a modest dress to prom. It's like suddenly you go, I'm equipped to take on the whole wide world. And that's ultimately what I'm trying to teach the kids: is you don't have to fit inside of any box that is what society says is normal. Like, it's so much more empowering to step outside of that box and say, I'm cool with who I am. If you're not cool with who I am, that's cool. I don't
I'm
care.
cool with that too.
I'm cool with that too. Right. Exactly. And if
So
we can,
these are like invaluable life lessons, and I'm wondering if you're in a leadership position in your professional realm, right?
yeah.
You manage, how many people do you happen to oversee and steward
Uh,
and lead?
Here at the home office, there's about 55 full-time employees that I have some direct relationships with, and then the agency itself is comprised of like 650 insurance agency owners,
Massive.
and so I have a direct relationship with a lot of people. Yeah.
So are there particular, you know, life skills slash leadership skills that you feel like, gosh, being in a position, a leadership position, I also want to make sure not only do my kiddos have a sense of self-awareness and nonconformity and embrace that, but I also want them to have these three other key
Mm,
attributes so that they can go into the world, make a positive difference, endure the chaos of life,
yeah.
seize the opportunity. What are those in your mind that you feel like you've perhaps
Mm.
formally or informally imparted on them?
Um, that's a tough question. I do interact with lots of entrepreneurs, small business entrepreneurs, and they kind of fit in that same bucket, like nonconformity, um, you know, tenacity, grit, um, um, but one that came to mind that I like to teach my kids as well, and I actually got this one from Bryce Baranda, is he said to me one time long ago, like, I want when my kids leave the house, I want them to know that they can do hard things.
Nice. Yeah.
And so he said, I don't care what it is. They can pick their hard thing, but I want them to leave the house having done a hard thing so they know they can do hard things. And so whether that's playing the guitar or playing soccer at a very competitive level or playing violin or acting or whatever. It doesn't matter to me as the father. It matters to me that they learn a language or do something incredibly hard. So when they leave the house, they go, I'm a human being capable of doing very hard things. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but
Great.
I'm trying to teach my kids that principle. You can do very hard things. When you leave my home, you will have already accomplished very hard things and you're capable of very hard things. And for the rest of your life, you should chew off and try to accomplish very hard things. And from a leadership perspective, I think the same thing. Like I think that's a lesson that everybody should accomplish. Like, I don't know how to do that thing yet. And it's like, you're capable of very hard things. Let's go. You
Mm.
can figure that out. And so um, you're capable of it. So
I love that. If there's only one thing, that's a pretty worthy one. Not that I know there's more, but it's like if you can equip your kids to embrace adversity and actually treat it like bring it on.
yeah, yeah.
That's it. That's massive
Or
because
I've
that's
done
that's
it before with something else. I can do it again with this thing. It's no problem. I want it.
yeah,
Yeah.
seizing those moments. So I want to highlight something I feel like is it just showcases the kind of guy you are, the kind of father you are, the family you've brewed up. Because I saw you. I'm trying to think when we had lunch. I believe you were over on Broadway
Yeah.
offices.
Sure. That was a long time ago.
But we might have talked about this on the phone. But I remember you telling me over COVID, your entire family learned how to play guitar.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
What a cool thing! What a way to seize the tumultuous nature of that time in our lives, and 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 capitalize on something that I think I can just imagine them. They'll 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 never forget that, and they'll always have that. And now they have the
Yep.
skill of playing a guitar. I
Yeah.
mean, how did that
So
come to you? And is that
yeah, I'll tell you
innate?
because that's a quick, easy story. But somebody said something pretty profound to me as COVID was kicking off. I don't even remember who it was, but they said, you know, when we're grandmas and grandpas, people are going to ask us, our grandkids are going to like for a school report are going to say, "Hey, grandpa, you lived during COVID. Like, what did you do? What happened? Tell me about it."
Mm,
And are we going to say, are you going to say, yeah, I just had Netflix and I binge watched a ton of crap. I just binge watched this series and then I went to that series. And then let me tell you, grandkid, I then went to this series. And then have you ever heard of this series? We did that one too. And then we did that series and then we did this series. I mean, what are we going to do? Are we going to sit back and just binge watch a whole bunch of crap? Or are we going to do something productive so we can tell our grandkids, this is what I did during COVID, you know? And so when COVID started, I had one guitar that I had bought in college that I'd never touched my whole life. And and we pulled it out, and me and my son were fooling around with it. And then like the whole family, I'm like, guys, what if we just like, I proposed the same question, like, guys, everybody's going to ask when this is all over, people are going to go, what did you do with your time? And are we going to say we binge watched a bunch of crap, or are we going to say we did something productive? So, we now have a guitar wall. We own 7 guitars. They're all hanging on the wall. It's gorgeous. Uh, at some point I said to the kids, if you play 6 days a week, all summer long, I'll buy you whatever guitar you want. And so it was so cool because they got to choose whatever guitar they wanted to choose. And Mia chose a Hummingbird, which is an iconic guitar, and I was so proud of her. And Crew chose like the best sounding guitar I've ever heard in my life, and it's hanging on the wall. And we've just gone all in. Like this is what we do now: is we YouTube songs and we figure out how to play guitar, and and it's become part of their identity. And they've tackled something hard and they've figured it out, and it's become very much a part of the family identity. It's
Truly
been fun.
amazing, dude. I admire that so much in you.
Yeah.
And again, a testament to your philosophy and approach on living a good life. And then it just so happens you're living a good fatherhood role and
Yeah.
setting the tone
Hopefully.
for your kiddos. So, dude, hats off to you for making that move.
Well,
Such an impressive approach to it, considering the nature of the world for a couple of years there.
yeah. I got to tell you, Dave, I'm so excited about the journey you're on. This is a fun journey. Not only the podcast journey, but the fatherhood journey, the husband journey. It's so much fun to watch the Dave Momper like turn into a man and turn from. I suppose it's fun to watch anybody that you've been friends with for, close to 30 years, but just kind of watch them, evolve from this immature, stupid teenager like you were. No, just kidding. I do have one more question for you though. But it's so much fun to watch you evolve. It's been so much fun, and I think you're on a very worthy journey of trying to figure it all out. I would just end where I started, which is don't put too much pressure on yourself. I mean, continue to have fun and enjoy it um, because it's so much that you got to approach it with a smile and laughter and comedy and just kind of go, let's get after this fatherhood thing today. I'll try my best today. We'll see how it goes. The question I had for you though is, you're an artist. Dave Momper, everybody, is an artist. He's an incredibly talented artist, and he's a freaking really good artist. So, let me ask you. I don't know if this will be our last question, but like, how do you plan on helping your child fall in love with art?
Hmm.
If you even have a plan for that. But and art could be music, art could be, Meow Wolf, art could be, I don't know what art could be anything, but you are an incredibly talented artist. Are you still making time for art? And how are you going to instill art into your child? How is your child going to know that you're an artist?
Yeah. Well, look, thank you. Thank you. Wow, thank you.
You're welcome.
In a way, I mean, this endeavor, putting the podcast together, picking the graphic, putting together the little riff on the front side, working with a
Yeah.
buddy of mine, that was a creative act and part of my art, I suppose. And
Yeah.
over the years, I've been bringing people together with different events and gatherings and creating experiences. That's kind of my craft and my
Yeah.
art.
Yeah.
But I think for what Leo might be able to see firsthand is well, I mean, I love finding stuff in the woods. Like
Mm.
I mean, I've got an antler that I've been working on painting in a kind of a decorative way. I've
Awesome.
got a bunch of different things on our walls. One is this really cool log. It's about this big,
Yeah.
and it had been tumbled in the Colorado River
Mhm.
for who knows how long, and I found it on the shore on a raft trip once, and then I've turned that into just this little
Yeah.
wall hanging with 2 little glass bulbs
Yeah.
and some air plants in it.
Hmm.
Um, and then Mac and I are often sketching and drawing stuff out and painting, and so I think it's just going to be getting him into showing him how to use his imagination, I suppose, and how to make things and break things and
Yeah.
build things together and be creative with the unassuming ingredients that are. And then he could I love just being very traditional, just painting and
Yeah.
drawing and stuff like
Yeah.
that too. But it'll be inherent, I think, in our lifestyle. And hopefully if he's also inherently creative, he's gonna pick up on it. But
Yeah.
it would be a
Well,
shame if I didn't have a creative little artist and it's like the combo of being like a woodsman and an
mhm.
artist.
Yeah, right. It's a beautiful combination.
That's what we're kind of going for.
Yeah. You're also a great writer, and I know you write a lot too, like very poetic and very thoughtful in writing too. And so it'll be fun. It'll be so much fun to like see what Leo, becomes, and if he like becomes a little mini Dave Momper, or if he doesn't, that's perfectly fine too. But it'll be fun to see if he becomes a little artist and be like, dude, that kid picked up your art desires, or that kid is an incredible, beautiful thinker and writer, like you are. And it'd just be interesting to see what becomes of Leo.
Thank you, sir.
I guess that's my point, is it's been fun to see who you become for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
It'll be fun to like see a whole nother generation become something like, if you ever got to know my kids, I'm sure it'd be fun for you to be like, wow, these kids did not fall far from the tree, or wow, these kids are nothing like that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably a little bit of both in a way, I would
Probably.
imagine. So final question for our time together in
Okay.
this round. We'll see
Okay.
so many other conversations or topics we could go to, but I want you to visualize yourself in the future. You're not in the room. Your kids are sitting there weaving tales of their fatherhood or of their father, and they are sharing this with perhaps their kids, another generation, and telling tales of the Shawn Michael Walker.
Hmm.
What are the three things you're known for?
I don't know. I'm sure my kids would say my dad was hilarious. I'm sure they would just be like my dad, and whether or not people agree listening to this podcast, I'm sure that my kids would personally be like, the guy was a clown. Um, uh, and he was irreverent and he was immature, and it always drove his wife nuts, and his mom nuts, and it drove, but that's who he was, and he never apologized for it, and he never tried to be something other than that. So I'm sure they would say that. I would think they would say that. They say it to me all the time, like, Dad, I wish I was more like you in that on that front. But hopefully they would say he was a great husband, and say, you know, I could watch him take care of mom, and he took care of our mom really, really well. And and then hopefully they would say, he was a really uh like spiritual in his own way. Like he had a connection with God, but it wasn't always conventional, but he had faith.
You're such a good dude, bro.
Yeah. Hopefully, I don't know. I have no idea what
No,
they'll
dude.
say.
No, I
They'll
just feel you.
probably
I
be
just
like,
feel
he
you
made.
speaking those words, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
You're a
So
good
I don't know.
man.
We'll see.
I appreciate you waxing philosophically and pouring your heart out in our conversation.
It's good talking
And
to you, Dave.
absolutely, brother.
What you're
Appreciate
doing
your
is
time.
awesome. Keep it up.
Thanks, sir.
All right. We'll see you later.
All right.
There you have it. That's been another episode of Whoa Dad Go Dad. If you like what you're hearing, hit the like button, subscribe to the podcast so you get the future ones, and please spread the word and post this episode to your social networks. That's powerful. Perhaps the best thing you can do is share this directly with a new dad or a soon-to-be dad that you know personally. Let them know you're rooting them on. And indeed, drop a comment and be really a part of this dialogue on fatherhood with me. Let me know in the comments a question you want me to ask other dads, or just some feedback. How does this sound to you? What's helpful? What stands out about these conversations? I would appreciate that intel as I grow Whoa Dad Go Dad. I've got many more episodes to come, and I'm so glad you're here. Looking forward to catching you on the next one.
Whoa, Dad, here we go now. Oh yeah, the ultimate roll now. Oh yeah, here we go now. Whoa, Dad, go.